India's Eternal Blending Program or EBP stands as one of the most ambitious energy transition program globally. The country achieved the milestone of blending 20% ethanol in petrol by 2025, 5 years ahead of the scheduled target of 2030, and now is targeting a higher blend of 27% or even 30% by 2030 under the National Policy for Biofuels. The government says it is a win for energy security, rural economies, and cleaner air. But the blending has created a widespread discussion across economic, social, and political circles. And in this video, we will try to see the ground realities and separate the signal from the noise. First, let us see the arguments for the blending program. India imports about 85% of its crude oil, but domestic production of ethanol has cut the import bill significantly. The estimated forest savings is about 1.5 to 1.6 lakh crores over the last decade. Now, this gives a buffer to the economy against global price volatility and geopolitical risks. Sugarcane farmers and mills have long faced distress. Ethanol provides a stable outlet for cane, molasses, and even damaged grain and maize. This channels money into rural India, especially states like Maharashtra, Karnataka, and UP, thereby hopefully reducing farmer suicide linked to mill defaults. Ethanol is an oxygenated fuel. It enables more complete combustion, reducing carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons, thereby making the air quality better. So, polluted cities like Delhi can benefit massively without major vehicle replacement. When farmers use edible crops like sugarcane, maize, and surplus rice for ethanol production, they are basically using these edible crops for more commercial profit. And when water guzzling cash crops like sugarcane, maize, or rice are preferred or prioritized over edible crops like pulses and millets, it will potentially inflate food prices. And this is noted in economic assessments. The water footprint for Indian sugarcane ethanol is approximately 2800 to 2900 liters per liter of ethanol, and this can deplete the state aquifers very quickly. Brazil also depends on sugarcane ethanol. Brazil also uses sugarcane ethanol, but unlike Indian counterpart, it uses rainwater. The Indian sugarcane ethanol depends on groundwater or blue water, and lower energy density leads to about 2 to 7% drop in mileage. Ethanol's properties can cause issues in older vehicles, though the modern vehicles are largely compatible. Now let us see what scientific studies reveal. Indian sugarcane based ethanol has a significantly higher water footprint than its Brazilian counterpart because Indian cultivation relies heavily on irrigation, whereas much of Brazil's sugarcane is rain fed. Life cycle assessment also shows that emissions from fertilizers, machinery, irrigation, and transportation reduce some of the environmental benefits achieved at the vehicle's tailpipe or the exhaust pipe. Now, tailpipe Emission improvements are well established in ethanol blended fuel. However, when emissions from cultivation, processing, and distribution are considered, then this first generation or the current ethanol blend delivers only modest gain in greenhouse gas emission compared with pure petrol, whereas the second generation ethanol blending, which is not mainstream yet, can reduce greenhouse emissions by 80 to 90%. We will talk about it later. Testing by Automotive Research Association of India and vehicle manufacturers indicate that vehicles especially designed for E20 perform well with it. However, pre-E20 compatible vehicles, especially those created or manufactured before the recent transition, may face issues. The ethanol debate is not merely about fuel, it reflects a deeper conflict between competing priorities in a vast and diverse democracy like India. Both supporters and critics are driven by legitimate concerns, but they differ in what they consider the most important. Supporters argue that it will protect sugarcane farmers' income and also reduce rural distress. It will support the sugar industry by creating an additional market for surplus sugar. It will also reduce India's dependence on imported crude oil and hence will improve energy security. It will save forex exchange that would otherwise be spent on oil imports. It will achieve immediate reduction in emissions and urban air pollution. Supporters also claim that India is using an existing technology for implementation without waiting for a complete EV transition. And on the critics side, they argue that consumers should be protected from increased maintenance costs, higher fuel consumption, and potential vehicle compatibility issues. Critics also point out that preserving water in a country already facing groundwater depletion is important. Food crops being directed towards fuel production is another issue. There is simply no clean winner here because both sides evaluate success by using different criteria. From a long term environmental and sustainability perspective, concerns about land use, water use, food security carry considerable weight. And there are also limitations of the current generation of ethanol blending. The argument is that India's long term transport strategy should focus on electric mobility and the strategy should also focus on cleaner public transportation and advanced biofuels made from agricultural residue rather than rely on food crops. And from a short to medium term economic and strategic perspective, ethanol blending provides tangible benefits. It helps reduce India's import bill, crude oil import bill. It improves India's energy security. It supports millions of farmers and it stabilizes the sugar industry. While India focuses on building up the EV ecosystem. Now let us talk about the vehicle owner's dilemma. For many vehicle owners, the ethanol debate is less about national energy security and more about day-to-day operating costs. While the country may benefit from lower oil imports and greater energy independence, individual motorists naturally focus on fuel efficiency, maintenance costs, and vehicle longevity. Owners of the older vehicles are particularly concerned because they may experience reduced fuel economy, compatibility issues, or additional maintenance costs without receiving any compensation for bearing this risk. Let us understand the technicalities of such concerns. Ethanol contains approximately 30 to 35% less energy as compared to petrol, pure petrol. As a result, higher ethanol blend can reduce fuel economy. If the engine is not specifically calibrated in practice, E20 typically causes a mild reduction in mileage, often reported in the 2 to 6% under real world conditions, although the actual impact varies with vehicle design and engine calibration. Modern engines specifically designed for E20 can recover part of this loss through optimized combustion and improved engine management, but they cannot completely eliminate the lower energy content of ethanol. Older vehicles not designed for E20 may be more susceptible to corrosion of certain metal components, degradation of rubber seals, hoses, and plastic fuel system parts. Water absorption also increases because ethanol is hygroscopic. There can also be fuel system contamination or deposit related issues in poorly maintained vehicles. These concerns are particularly relevant in India, where millions of two wheelers and cars remain in daily use. India's transport transition will not happen overnight, with more than 300 million vehicles already on the road. The challenge the government is facing is massive, and in this context, ethanol can be a transitional or bridge fuel rather than a permanent solution. It allows India to reduce petroleum consumption using existing vehicle and fuel infrastructure, while EV manufacturing, charging networks, battery supply chains, and cleaner electricity generation continue to expand. Unlike EV, ethanol requires minimum changes to the country's retail fuel network. So it is one of the fastest ways to lower crude oil import and reduce emissions from the existing vehicle fleet. Besides the development of first generation or the current generation of ethanol, the development of second generation or 2G ethanol is also taking place. Second generation of ethanol is produced from agricultural residue such as rice straw, which offers an opportunity to convert farm waste into fuel. If implemented effectively, it could provide farmers with an additional source of income, and this will also help reduce the practice of stubble burning in northern India. Now, why a breeze makes sense? Why a breeze fuel makes sense for India? Ethanol can provide several near-term advantages. Let us have a look at the benefits now. Ethanol reduces dependence on crude oil imports. It uses the existing national network of fuel pumps and fuel logistics, and there will be lower emissions from millions of existing vehicles without requiring immediate replacement. And when development of 2G or second generation ethanol is completed and rolled out, it will also create additional markets for agricultural residues. The ethanol push by government provides time for EV charging networks, battery manufacturing, renewable electricity generation, and power grid upgrades to mature. A well designed policy can use ethanol to improve today's vehicle fleet, while simultaneously investing on tomorrow's zero emission transport system. India's eternal push sits at the intersection of three competing national priorities. Number one, energy security. Number 2, food and nutritional security. And number 3, ecological and water security. No policy can maximize all three simultaneously. Strengthening one objective inevitably places pressure on the others. In the short term, ethanol blending E20 has delivered meaningful economic and strategic returns. It has reduced dependence on crude oil imports, generated demand for agricultural products, supported rural income, improved financial health of the sugar sector, and contributed to less vehicle emissions. For a country that imports its oil, these are significant improvements or achievements. However, the long term sustainability of this program depends on recognizing its limits. Expansion based primarily on water intensive crops such as sugar cannot continue indefinitely in a country already facing groundwater depletion. If water aquifers decline due to ethanol production, the economic and environmental foundation of the ethanol program weaken, regardless of its short term success. The central question, therefore, is not whether ethanol is good or bad. The question is whether India can use ethanol as a transition strategy. India cannot afford to become permanently dependent on ethanol. Ultimately, the ethanol debate is not about choosing between farmers and motorists or between energy security and environmental protection. It is about managing inevitable trade offs. If managed with discipline and foresight, ethanol can serve as an effective bridge. It will support India's rural economy, it will strengthen energy security, and it will also buy valuable time for the country, for the nation to build a cleaner transport system. However, if it is allowed to expand without ecological safeguards in place, it risks collapsing under its own weight. The success of the ethanol program will not be decided by how much ethanol is blended into petrol. That is secondary. The program will be measured by if it delivers cleaner energy, if it improves rural livelihood, if it can protect natural resources, and if it can provide a smooth transition to the next generation of transportation.